I'm going to talk a little bit about what I would call the craft of new media storytelling. I'm really happy about the previous talk because it's a really nice build-up to what I'm talking about. Filmmaking is a craft, and one of the last notes the previous speaker had was getting to know all the technical sides of your filmmaking, which is really important, I think, when making films. I'm a filmmaker myself. I'm going to see if I can make this thing work. It's a PowerPoint presentation. I'm a Mac guy, so this is going to be really interesting. Yeah, okay, it's working. Yeah, there we go. There's a GIF going. So, first of all, I'd really like to just have you guys reflect a little bit about who you are in this audience. And I'm not sure actually who you are in this audience because I've never been to Digital Biscuit before. I don't know the Irish film industry. But I guess you are probably one of these, maybe? At least I am what I would say a storyteller. I was schooled in filmmaking, and I'm a producer from school. But I guess in recent years I've just become a storyteller because mediums for storytelling are so many, and they're kind of you want to get at all of them. But there's one thing that's not up on this screen, and which I don't think many of us will define ourselves as, and that is a craftsman. How many of you guys would say you were craftsmen in the film industry? Yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4? I'm going to talk about this because I think it's kind of interesting. I found this really neat definition of craftsmanship online. You can find all sorts of cool stuff online, but this is one definition was this is really slow. The artful construction of a discourse. And this talk is for me to try to get you guys to reflect a little bit about that we all might be a little bit more craftsmen than we think when working with new media. And I'm going to take you through 3 cases about this and that I've crafted, and then we can kind of look at that, and you can ask me some questions afterwards. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in '84, the same year that this guy said hello to the world. And I guess I grew up, as many of you guys, with the internet and connected to all sorts of media. I guess, yeah, that's like a lot of our generation. But I had a very deep passion for filmmaking and still do. I think storytelling through the act of putting images together is amazing. And I did do a lot of films in my film school days. These are 3 of them. And weirdly enough, these films all had a male protagonist who was really couldn't find his way in life and didn't know the answers to things. And so I guess the point about making films about your own life is true. But I have another confession, and that is that I'm not only a filmmaker, not only interested in making films and telling stories, I'm also a believer in the forthcoming of singularity. Now, I guess you all know HAL 9000, who is the first artificial intelligence to really hit Main Street. I've just been completely absorbed with the advancement of technology and advancement of where the modern world is going. And I think we're on the verge of something very unique, and I think it's an exponential thing that's going to go very fast. So I decided to not just make films, but to see if I could explore this opening field of new media and new technology with my storytelling as my background. And if you don't know what the singularity is, there's some great books on that. I can also talk to you about that afterwards. But basically, it's where people and artificial intelligence meet each other in the level of intelligence, and from there on, we don't know what happens. So the audience is changing as well, as long as technology is changing. We see audiences changing, and a lot of talks today has been about this. And this is an example of 3D, of course. But I don't think we as filmmakers and storytellers can demand that our audience sit by the TV or in the cinema necessarily to see to listen to our stories. I think we have to understand that they're everywhere, and they are grabbing any medium at hand just to pick up and dip in and grace the story from here, tangent it from there, and find out what the core of the story is. And I think that's very interesting. So I really realized this a couple of years ago when I made a flash mob together with the Copenhagen Philharmonic, because I'd made YouTube films before, and as you also said before, YouTube is really free. You can just do what you want, and there's no real limits. So we did a flash mob, which was really, really successful and had millions of views and was shown on Japanese television. It was shown on Discovery Channel, interviewed for all sorts of weird stuff, and really kind of proved to me that there was this other way of getting a message out there. And I guess I got really ambitious after that, and so I started to work on a project that we called the World Online Orchestra Project, which I also funded through Kickstarter, which was very interesting as well, a new media. I'm not going to go into this, but this is just where everything kind of happened for me in a sense of understanding how to craft your own medium. Someone said earlier today they were converted. I think that's the point of conversion, like when you suddenly realize, wow, I can actually do this myself. I can build a medium. I can be part of the story by the way that people interact with the story. And this is basically a site where you could join a symphony, or it still is. It's an ongoing project. You can go visit it if you want on Chrome, where you can be part of a symphony if you play, or you can just be your own conductor and gather an ensemble and just play around with a symphony, which is it's a really neat project. But yes, so let's take 3 steps away from cinema, because in order for me to kind of get my point across about craftsmanship, I think we all have to start in a cinema where we all understand and know and love film and storytelling, and then see where we can go from there. And this discourse I'm taking you on now is just one, and it's the one I did, but I hope that it can give you some inspiration to how you would like to craft your stories. The first case is called How to Say Goodbye. How to Say Goodbye is a story about breaking up, and the director and I, who were crafting this experience, had just been broken up with, so we felt sad. And by the way, this is a QR code. It's working. You can scan it and see the film online. I won't judge you if you don't, because they're hideous. But there was a story that we wanted to tell, but we also wanted to make more visceral for the audience, not just see a film about breaking up. I mean, that's happened before. So we thought to ourselves, how can we make this, make the feeling of saying goodbye more visceral for the audience? And so I'm going to try to see a clip now through this PowerPoint presentation, and hopefully you guys can help me skip through it at some point, because I don't have like a mouse cursor. So you gotta imagine the context of this. We're sitting in a cinema, as we are now. We're the audience, and we're watching a film opening as a normal film. And the audience are expecting just a short film. And we see our protagonist. She's walking into her home, and she has a scene with her boyfriend, which doesn't really go as planned. I'm just going to be quiet for a while. I've edited it, so it's kind of weird logic, but you'll get the idea.
Nej, for du har aldrig tid til at snakke. Den anden dag, da jeg prøvede at fortælle dig, hvordan jeg havde det omkring min far og alt det der. Jeg kan ikke fortsætte sådan her.
Du kan inte mena att du säger det du säger till mig. Var ska du gå någonstans? Kan du svara? Vart ska du gå?
Stop her.
Du, om du går ut ur den jävla dörren nu så ska du glömma att komma tillbaks. Dra åt helvete!
That's Swedish and Danish. So in this point, we're like 15 minutes into the film. I've edited it really short. And people have watched this weird scene where this all went bad and he left.
Jag har spelat den här
Suddenly we hear a voice. It's a voiceover, we think, at first, but the lights are coming up in the cinema, and the audience are suddenly understanding that perhaps they're not alone in the cinema. The live feed from the voice you're hearing here is actually from the two actors sitting in the cinema with the audience on the fourth row. And as the screen is kind of projecting the film that they just, or the scene they just see, they're hearing this flash forward, and suddenly we edit to a live feed from the cinema. I've never heard a quiet cinema in my life that was this quiet. As you can see, the audience members, they're looking at this picture while seeing themselves in the background. And it was really interesting because suddenly there was this weird connection between live and projected reality, like suspension of disbelief on screen. The fourth wall was kind of broken in really harshly. So I'm going to ask you guys to skip ahead a little bit, just to the end of it. She gets up and leaves and says she can do it over, but of course she can't do it over. She comes back to the scene where he is. He's still sitting in the cinema. She's back in the scene, trying to mend it or to change the course of the scene, but she can't. He leaves again, and she has a moment after he left the second time, where he suddenly gets up in the cinema and says, "I never stopped loving you." He looks at the screen, and she suddenly looks into the camera. And they have a dialogue between the audience and the screen, and she gets up and leaves the fiction, and she goes into the cinema. You can skip to the very end now. She gets into the cinema, and the last scene is with completely dark screen, live with the audience. Only the two actors saying goodbye at the end, and. That was a very magical experience. Of course, could only be done once, but it was fun. So I'm seeing, can I skip to the slide next? Yeah. So I guess this case for me, or the reason I bring it up is because it's still the cinema. I mean, we relate to all the elements of it, but bringing in the live element and bringing in the theatrical performance and taking the audience a little bit by surprise and kind of sneaking behind that fourth wall or maybe bashing through it, I don't know, kind of suddenly made this very magical moment for people that they've come up to me afterwards and said there was a really amazing scene or amazing film because we really felt that we were suddenly there next to this breakup and it was harsh and it felt hard. And that was exactly what we wanted. And I think there is a no-no normally in film about, breaking that wall, breaking that suspension of disbelief. But I think in this case it worked really well, and I think the medium that we kind of, or the construction we did around the film supported that in a good way. So the director Johan, who's also here, is going to talk a lot more about the Doghouse later, but I'm quickly going to talk about it because this is the second case, which is a virtual reality film. And in many ways, and you can experience this outside, just outside the door, in many ways, this was taking a cinema and then building it ourselves somewhere, because then audience had to go to a place, put on the goggles, and experience a film. And it all began with a story, of course, which I think is very important. In this case, the story was a family dinner. This is dad, brother, the new girlfriend, and the mother. And on the floor, out of frame, is the little brother. These 5 people are perhaps people we all somehow know in some ways. It's the classic family dinner, bound to go bad. And very Danish house, by the way. So if you go into the Doghouse, you'll see what that's like being in a Danish living room. And of course, making a story about 5 people sitting around a table presented itself with an interesting opportunity because, well, why not do the 5 point of view film? Why not? What would it be like to do a 5 point of view film, but where you actually had your own point of view? So each audience member only had one of the 5 point of views, and then at the end of the film, or when the masks were taken off, then they could piece together the story. And so we created this installation with Oculus Rift, which is a virtual reality goggles, and we took the exact same tablecloth, lamp, everything, and kind of put it into an installation, put the Oculus Rift under the table, and then had people sit at the same dining table, becoming either the mother, father, brother, younger brother, or the new girlfriend. And I'm not going to go into the details of this, but this is what it looks like to be the mother.
Vi har jo altid været meget glade for mad her i familien. At det er meget skægt med Jakob. Man kan faktisk ikke se det på, at man har altid spist meget. Ja. Han fik også bryst, da han var 4.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward in there. It's all about shame and experiencing shame and projecting shame. And the reason I bring this up is because usually when you go and do something, you either listen to talks or you go online and you figure out how to do stuff. And we couldn't Google how to do this type of film. It was really weird. So we kind of had to build everything ourselves, and you just saw the camera mount on the head there that we built from a bicycle helmet, and GoPro cameras that were put together to do a stereo image, and binaural microphones just jammed in the ears of the actors, and they were also kind of scared, I guess. And then, building this recording tool allowed us to make a film like we usually make a film, just a set where there was no lighting and no crew, because they all had to be stuffed into the corner, and then everyone, the whole house was free for the actors to run around. And I think there were so many things that we realized while building the recording tool, and also, of course, also building the way to view the film, that made this story work, because we just realized how much it affects an actor to be the one carrying the camera, how it affects the other actors, how it affects the experience to be the one sitting, watching through the eyes of someone else. And it's and you have to write your story to that medium. You cannot write it and then use the medium. It's kind of like a collaborative thing where the medium in itself becomes sort of the way to tell the story. And I think that's truly interesting. And I hope you go listen to Johan later, who's going to go much deeper into the story of the Doghouse.
Skal de give mig...
Nej, det er min mors.
Ej, det gør vel ikke noget, man får en enkelt øl, det får man ikke taget kortet af, vel?
Det er en meget overvældende oplevelse for publikum at være inde i en anden karakter. Og det gør også, at når du ser en scene, en situation igennem nogens øjne, nogle andres end dine egne, så tager du meget hurtigt karakteren på dig og føler dig i et med karakteren.
Very meta with me up there and here. So.
Hvor kom vi fra?
Der sker det magiske, når folk de tager de her virtual reality briller af, og altså træder ud af deres karakter, at de sidder til bords med en flok mennesker, som før var fremmede for dem, men nu er de har de alle oplevet den samme situation, så de har på en eller anden måde et bånd til hinanden, en familiær relation til hinanden. Og ud fra den relation kan man som publikum altså begynde at tale sammen.
Og det gør de.
Og det går hurtigt op for publikum, at den oplevelse, som de selv har haft, adskiller sig fra de andre.
Can we skip now? I'm not going to go through all that. But that was just to show you that there's a really amazing physical thing that happens when you're in the Doghouse. I hope you experience that later. So the last case, I don't know how much time do I have? I'm really unsure. Does anyone know? Okay. I'll keep going. So the last case I wanted guys to check out is called Recho, not Recho, which I was told that by an American producer to remember. That's not good. Recho is short for recording echoes, and this is a really far step away from cinema. So you gotta hang on with me for 1 second. we had an idea, a designer and I, a couple of years ago, that stories could belong to somewhere else than places, or somewhere else than just in the cinema or in TV or whatever. How about what if stories, or what if places was the living place of stories? And we thought, what if we could give people, like, you know, the ability to walk into a story and have it been told to them while looking at the place they were in with their own eyes. So in effect, making a film without images, making a film for the eyes, just with sound and geolocated. Anyway, also very complicated, but in short, we figured out that it could be fun to make a tool. So we made an app called Recho, and Recho is short for recording echoes. And I'll just show you quickly a little film of what it is. I hope it will begin by itself.
Recho lets you record a sound and leave behind for anyone to find. Recho lets you record a sound and leave behind for anyone to find. People leave wonderful sound all around. But they won't say a squeak until they're found.
Far in a western brookland that bred me long ago,
The poplars stand and tremble by pools I used
to know.
Travel back in time to much warmer weather. Here, two little kids hatched an evil plan together.
Listen, Sally, let's throw water on Dad. Oh no, that will make him sad.
If you are romantic, like me, which I assume you could be, surprise someone you hold very dear with a secret message only they can hear. Or follow me and I'll take you to a party we can't see. Recho also lets you explore professional voices,
while the colors and forms are carefully made choices.
or
Should we skip?
try, if you dare, to walk a nightwear.
So it's an app where you record a sound and you leave it exactly where it was recorded. Anyone else can walk up to that sound, but only if they are exactly at that place, they can listen to that sound. So in effect, leaving behind echoes in the world that anyone can walk up and listen to. And this, of course, is also a tool for everyone else. I mean, you can leave moments for yourself and for your friends. You can leave small romantic notes for your girlfriend. But we really wanted it to be a storytelling platform. So we partnered up with a couple of really cool people like the Danish Broadcasting Corporation, the city of Copenhagen, and the Roskilde Festival in Denmark, to make projects that were based on storytelling, where people actually got a chance to go out and either have a treasure hunt in the city, or they listened to the atmosphere sounds from the 1864 drama series that the Danish Broadcasting Corporation just did. So you could walk at the actual battlefield and listen to the sound atmosphere from the series. You know, so we can kind of put sound back in its place and stories back to the places where they were from. And that's a really interesting thing. It, of course, takes us a long way from telling stories, because now I just created the tool for the story, or the medium itself. But of course, I'm very interested in working with this medium also. I really want to do stuff with this. And this just leads me to say that, and of course, I just wanted to show you guys that it's kind of spreading now. I guess we have about 6,000 users leaving sounds all around the world. So if you want to go ahead and download Recho, you can do so on the App Store now. And you can go ahead and leave a Recho here in Dublin. I actually don't think there is a sound in Dublin yet, so leave your echo here. So to conclude, I think what Recho is an example of is one of the tools that we have begun to understand as new media. And this is, of course, Recho is just a tool that I built. It's a very small one. There's millions like this. And they're called all sorts of stuff, like we've heard some of the names today. Trying to click them in here. Virtual reality, interactivity, alternate reality games, crowdsourcing, audience participation, transmedia, enhanced perception, expanded sensory experience, and so on. And I think that that's a toolbox that's very interesting for us to start working with, to start working in all sorts of directions with it. And I want to bring you back to the beginning of film, because when the new tools of filmmaking came, people didn't know what to do with it. There were different ways of engaging with this new medium, and one of them was the classic Buster Keaton way, where you'd kind of take a stage play and then you put it in front of the camera, and then you had your film, right? And that worked. It worked for many people, and I guess now, taking new media, using the ways that you would use the old media and put it into a new media context, that will probably work fine as well. But there were also other ways of doing it, like pushing the envelope of what that new media could. So for instance, understanding techniques of editing, which here proven by Eisenhower and Hitchcock and so forth, like montage. What happens if we edit something and we cut to a completely different thing, and we suddenly understand context between images, and that was just completely new for people when they saw this the first time. But it created new ways of interacting with the audience in forms of their perception of time, their perception of the story. And of course, in my opinion, the most interesting, and which is also very, very present today, is developing through trial and error. Take the medium, you don't know what you're going to do with it, just try something and figure out what works and what doesn't. And this is also a point I think that's come across a lot today. I'm finishing up. Here an example of Godard, where he's taking the camera, putting in the back seat, jump cutting, handheld. Yes, because I think we can all agree on that the films and the stories that we're telling, aren't just constrained anymore to the 16:9 that we have here behind us. I think we all know that we have to start talking about the dimension that's from the screen to us. And that's why we have to build this bridge as craftsmen. And I'm in my mind, that's all we can do. Get our hands dirty and start working and building. Thank you.